Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wigan 77 True Crime and Mystery. Thank you for taking the time to join us once again. Everyone is welcome. Today at Wigan 77, we are going to continue to discuss the Delphi murder case and what other testimony we've learned from to date. Just to recap, this is about 13-year-old Abigail Williams, also known as Abby, along with her friend, 14-year-old Libby German, who was reported missing the early evening hours of February 13th, 2017. The following day, on February 14th, 2017, the girls' bodies were found in a wooded area. The girls had been brutally murdered. Okay, what you're seeing on the screen is the official FBI flyer at the time of the investigation. So, what we know from the testimony so far, the witness testimony is unreliable. Important evidence from the crime scene has not been tested for DNA. The girls, according to the analysis of Libby's phone, determines that they most likely took the path on the north side of the Deer Creek and did not walk over the Monon High Bridge that day. We also learned through testimony that the last photograph of Abby was not from Libby's phone. Also, the bridge guide video is not authentic. It was created by the police. Therefore, we come to who killed Abby and Libby. As according to the testimony, along with the physical evidence in the case, it doesn't appear to be Richard Allen. Today we will discuss the autopsy and the bullet, and tomorrow we'll talk about the DNA expert. Okay, so this is a photograph of what is referred to as an unspent round. What that means is the bullet has not been fired through the barrel of the gun. The bullet has been ejected out of the gun. You see this all the time in the movies, in the police shows, where they say, clear the gun, and then you see a bullet pop out the side of the gun. That is what is meant as an ejected round. So it's actually a bullet. It's just not been fired through the barrel. It has cycled, what they call cycled through the gun and ejected out the side of the gun, so to speak, where the shell casing would come if the bullet went through the barrel. Okay, I don't like guns, so this is what the expert witness for the prosecution testified to in regards to the unspent round that was possibly, and I'm saying possibly because I don't, I don't believe this, I believe they found that round maybe there, but I don't believe it has anything to do with the crime at the crime scene. There is no documented chain of evidence. That was evident through the testimony that this unspent round, the question of its validity has been called into question because there was absolutely no chain of evidence here. And what that means is there's no videotape of them finding it, recovering it from the ground. There's no real documentation of that, how it was transported from the crime scene to the wherever they store their evidence to from where it went from there to the lab. So that was very evident, and that's crucial because you're basing your whole case on finding this spent round, and you must produce a proper chain of evidence, especially videotaping finding it and how it was extracted from the ground. Exactly where did you find it? But anyway, let's get on with the testimony. Okay, Oberg was the prosecution witness, testified that they were able to identify Richard Allen's gun as having fired, and then they backtracked and said, I mean cycled, the crime scene cartridge. Oberg testified it was based on a sufficient amount of quantity and quality marks. Defense attorney Bradley Rosie's main point of contention was that Oberg used a fire round to compare to a cycled round, saying it's different circumstances and environments inside the firearm when the round is fired through the barrel versus cycled out. Oberg testified several times that the markings on the cartridge would be the same from cycling and from firing because the mechanism of the extractor and ejector still act the same. Now here's where it's important. Just the pressure changes, making markings from the fire round more deep or distinct, but not inherently different. Okay, this statement right there by this supposed expert witness is absolutely inaccurate. As a bullet fired through a gun barrel is subjected to more pressure and heat. Now that's the important part here. Heat versus an ejected round that is not subjected to pressure or heat. The markings are different. This expert is attempting to compare apples to oranges. A fire round is your apple, and a spent round is an orange. They're, and Rosie said to the expert, two environments, two different results. And defense Rosie is correct in this statement. Now, this is why most courts do not allow this type of testimony, as there's no basis in fact to support what Oberg is testifying to at this trial. For for decades, smart prosecutors and police investigators do not rely on ejected rounds of ammunition because they all know that there is no basis in fact for the markings. You cannot match these markings. So this expert, anyway, let's get back to what the Oberg, and then we'll discuss it. Oberg responded, it's the same way, just different pressure. Once again, the supposed expert is actually admitting this is junk forensics, as different pressure always causes different marks on metal. Now, for you folks who are a lot smarter than I am out there, would know this, like any metallurgist or anybody who works with firearms will know this. Okay, so ultimately, Rosie got the last word in because this Oberg kept going down this same line of questioning by simply emphasizing that Oberg's conclusion was based on a test fired round, not a test cycled round. And Oberg admitted it. She said yes. So again, the expert admits she's not comparing apples to apples. She's comparing an apple to an orange. She's firing a round, which is not the same as a cycled round, and then saying, okay, this fired bullet is the same as this ejected bullet. Well, that's not true. So, fact is, when it comes to ejected ammunition, you could gather a dozen Sig Saucers, this is what this gun was. It was a Smith & Wesson Sig Saucer handgun. You could eject bullets from the whole dozen of these guns, and most likely several of those guns would have the same ejector marks on them because it's the manufacturer. Okay, you cannot match an unspent round, an ejected round of ammunition to a specific gun. It's impossible. You can't do it. Okay, Rosie also argued that the test cycle cartridges had some extractor marks, but had limited or no ejector marks, emphasizing again that they were not the same as the crime scene cartridge. Oberg said, I don't consider them different. They just didn't have the marks as well. They weren't different, just not enough of them. In other words, what Rosie said is correct. So again, this expert is admitting that the defense attorney is correct, but won't come right out and admit it. Like, Rosie also took issue with the way Oberg not examining and documenting the stock ammunition used for the test rounds before cycling or firing them to know if they had any markings on them before her tests were performed. Okay, this demonstrates that Oberg did not conduct the test properly in the first place. Okay, any experiment you do, whether it's bullets or whatever it is, if you don't document what the markings are in the test rounds prior to conducting the experiment, then how do you know for certain the gun made those marks? How do you know that the marks weren't already on the test round prior to testing? Like, this is why it's outrageous that Oberg was allowed by Judge Galt to testify. The next portion of the testimony explains this is junk forensics and why this testimony shouldn't have been allowed in the first place. Through Rosie's questioning, it was also clarified that the 3 extractor marks on the cartridge found at the crime scene could have been caused by it being cycled 3 different times. So what that means is I have my gun, I eject the bullet. I pick the bullet up, I put it back in my gun, I eject it again. The gun falls to the ground, I pick it up again, I put it back in my gun. Okay, so that's what it means, cycled through 3 different times. So what this means, so Oberg admitted it's possible, or it could have been cycled through other firearms, so other types of guns. In other words, not specific to a Sig Saucer. So Oberg could do, and also Oberg finally admitted that she could not determine how long ago it had been cycled or ejected. The fact is, the unspent round at the crime scene could have been ejected from a different gun altogether. Okay, it could have been, I don't know a lot about guns, but any gun that took 40 caliber ammunition. Okay, this spent round could have been ejected from. Okay, and this is Oberg, the supposed expert, prosecution expert, said that. So another main defense argument called into question the science of the ballistics and firearms examinations. There's a large community, Rosie said, that disagrees with the accuracy of firearm experts at determining a match with a bullet and a gun. He said to Oberg, it's at the end of the day, it's all subjective. Here's Oberg's response. I don't know how you objectively measure subjectivity. Okay. The jury in this trial, and thank goodness, are very smart. There's some very smart people on this jury because they're asking some excellent questions. The jury did ask 13 questions, including if there was any way to tell if the Winchester 40 Smith & Wesson unspent round found at Richard Allen's home was from the same lot number as the Winchester 40 Smith & Wesson unspent round found at the crime scene. Oberg said there wasn't a way to tell. With the questions, from this jury, the intelligent questions they're asking, it really does give hope because Judge Gall denied the defense their metallurgics expert that would have proved the state expert witness was incorrect in how she conducted her experiments as well as her conclusions. So it's nice to see that this jury is, one, taking their jury duty seriously, and two, they're obviously an intelligent bunch of people asking very good questions. Okay, so what you're seeing here on the screen, this is a journalist who was in the courtroom sketch of a description of the crime scene from testimony. Okay, so this next one, this is a screenshot of the same area that is in the sketch. You see the tree with the odd bump on it? That is where Libby's body was found. Abby's body would have been to the left, on the left side. Okay, now this picture is from 2022. So these fallen trees you see there, they were standing in 2017. Okay, so this screenshot, it's both trees. The one on the left is the same tree you saw in the previous screenshot, as well as in the journalist's sketch, where Libby's body was found. The tree in the distance is the tree that had the blood stain that people called an F, but actually looked like the side of someone's bloody hand against the tree. I just wanted to show you that picture so you got a perspective of the distance from where the girls were found to the bloody tree, where later we'll, discuss that was most likely where Libby her injuries were inflicted. Now, the distance between the two trees is approximately 20 feet, maybe 20 feet, maybe not quite that far. So, with all this blood, it would be logical to assume that this is where Libby suffered the injuries to her neck. She either staggered back to the other tree or was, well, I can't say dragged back because let's say led back to the other tree because the officer who testified at what he saw at the crime scene when he first arrived after the bodies were discovered, he said that there were no drag marks in and you would be able to see them because there was thick leaves on the ground. So if you were dragging something, all those leaves would like bunch up. So it would be very visible to see that if she had been dragged along there. So on the left screenshot is a close-up of the tree with all the blood. The right screenshot is a close-up of the tree where Libby's body was found. Abby's body again would have been to the left. Okay, so the coroner testified that the girls had no sign of sexual assault or defensive injuries. Now, I myself find that odd, but anyway. The coroner testified there were two faint lines on Abby's face. One was between her chin and lower lip, and the other below her chin. While he said it looked like it could have been the edges of duct tape, he said there was no tape residue left behind, which would be impossible for duct tape on skin not to leave some residue behind. The coroner testified Abby had one cut to the left side of her neck. The coroner said it was a partial cut through the left jugular vein. The coroner said the transverse horizontal cut was about 2 3/4 inches long and was gaping open about 2 inches. So what that means is about a third and a third of an inch on each side of the 2 inches. It wasn't completely open. There were no signs of blunt force trauma. He said because of some of the abrasions on the right side of the wound and a clean edge on the left side, he would estimate the cut was made from right to left. He estimated the cut was about an inch deep. So let's think about what the coroners testified, because this is very important detail that police missed. If the cut is right to left, that usually means a left-handed person, okay? And an experiment you can do to determine if the coroner is accurate is take a tomato, stick your knife in the left side, cut going then right. Don't slice the tomato piece right off. Just drag it in a bit of the tomato. Because the tomato, skin of a tomato is very like human skin in the sense that when you cut human skin, you will have a clear defined cut, but you'll also have a jagged edge where when you end the cut. So, and then just look and see which end's got which jagged, left or right. Also, when Abby was cut, this is when she most likely stumbled and fell backwards on top of Libby's shoe and cell phone, concealing these items from the killer. Abby, when the police moved the sleeves of her sweatshirt to expose Abby's hands. Now, because when Abby was found, she wasn't found the way it said in the memorandum. The sweatshirt, she had on Libby's sweatshirt. So the sleeves of the sweatshirt actually covered her hands, so her hands were not exposed. So when the police pushed the sleeves up to expose her hands had dirt and debris, but no blood. So what that means is that when Abby was cut, she did not put her hands up to cover her wound, which would be your natural instinct, because that's what Libby did when she was cut. It's your natural instinct to protect yourself, okay? So Abby was most likely used her hands to break her fall. That's how she got the dirt and debris on her hands. Is she probably, if she fell backwards, she probably stuck her hands out to try and prevent herself from falling. And again, that's an instinctive reaction. Your body just does it. You don't think about it. So the other important detail the coroner testified to is the cut itself. Okay, this wasn't indiscriminate slashing. Okay, this wasn't somebody who was wielding a knife and just slashing like most people, criminals do, or deliberate stabbings. This was a very deliberate cut. This was a small cut. It was only well, it was large. People would call it a large cut, but in reality, if you look at most victims of, slashings or stabbings, this is a very deliberate cut. This is somebody who walked up to her with a knife and deliberately cut her jugular vein. Okay, the killer knew exactly where to cut, which would indicate someone with either medical knowledge or a hunter who had dealt with large game. Now, I'm an animal lover, so it's difficult for me to go into these grisly details, so I hope you understand what I mean here. The killer inflicted a cut that would cause the blood to flow quickly out of the body, okay? Because that's what hunters do to an animal that they've killed. Um, and that's as far as I'm going. Because the thought of that's just gory. Okay, so this killer was calm. Like, to make a cut like this, you're calm. This isn't somebody who's, in a frenzied state of mind, who's angry or loony or, running around indiscriminately, slashing or stabbing someone 40 times. No, this person was as calm as can be to inflict just one cut to her jugular vein. Okay? The coroner testified the cut itself was approximately 1 inch deep. This wound on Abby tells us there was more than one killer. Okay, and it boggles my mind that people believe one person could achieve the killing of these two girls. Once this coroner testified, like, it's impossible. Ask yourself, okay, would you stand there still as a pillar while someone was inflicting a 1 inch deep cut that is 2.75 inches, almost 3 inches wide, in the side of your neck? Like, would you stand there while that's happening to you? Like, Abby had to have been still when this cut was made, because if she wasn't, there would be a lot more jaggedness to the cut, okay? Because if she was moving around, the knife's moving in her skin, right? So it's not going to be a clean cut like this one was, okay? Plus, do you think that Libby would just stand there and watch this happening if there was only one killer? Like, like, think about that. People need to think about that. Like, you got somebody standing there with this knife. Your fight or flight instincts are going to automatically kick in. Okay, either you're going to attempt to flee, in which case that would show in the wound. Okay, so if somebody tries to cut you in the side of your neck and you try to flee, that's going to show in that wound that you tried to flee. Or you would fight, so you would have defensive wounds. According to the coroner, Abby has no defensive wounds. So according to him, we know she didn't fight. So first off, they finally did test this some of the female hair found, not all of it. The cut was precise, so we know she didn't move, which means someone was holding her still while the other inflicted the cut. This is what the evidence tells us from the coroner. Like, that's fact. Just to look at the evidence, that is a fact. The coroner testified Libby's right common carotid artery was partially cut, and her left common carotid artery and left jugular vein were completely cut through. The coroner explained that she had 4 wounds and possibly a fifth. The coroner said while it looks like 3 wounds, 2 of them overlapped, and another one has a possibility of also being 2 cuts. Now, this is an important detail because, again, it tells you how many perpetrators were there. Okay? Because think about this. The largest wound, which was 3.5 inches long on the right side of the neck, had what he called a tag at the end. He said it's more like an X pattern, and it would have been someone making 2 passes with a sharp object, trying to be on the same line but not fully accurate. The middle wound has the suggestion of a tag, but it's not conclusive. That's why the coroner said he can't tell with certainty if there were 5 cuts. There could have been a second pass on that location as well, but he's not sure. Okay, he testified the wound on the right side of Libby's neck had 5 red lines on the edge of the wound. They came out from the wound's edge and were around 1 millimeter wide with space between them. These abrasions at the center of the discussion about what type of knife could have been used. In his original autopsy report, the coroner indicated these marks could mean a serrated knife was used. Now, I don't know. This chap said he had lots of experience, had done hundreds and hundreds of autopsies. I mean, there's a big difference between a serrated knife, which is the kind of knife that's like a steak knife, so it's got that little wavy pattern on the blade. There's a big difference when you take a serrated knife and cut skin versus taking a flat blade, like a clean blade that has no pattern on it, and cut skin. Like there's a big, like you can tell the difference. I mean, again, go get your tomato, try one of those serrated knives, which is got the wavy pattern on the blade, and then try a smooth blade knife. And you can definitely tell the difference. A serrated knife rips the skin. So I don't know about these folks in Delhi here. I really don't. So in court on Wednesday, he testified now. The coroner, he thinks a box cutter was the weapon used. Now, again, we're getting into the rubbish territory again with these people. The thought, he said, came to him when he saw a box cutter on his workbench in his garage, and the thumb grip had several parallel lines on it that he thinks it could have made the marks on Libby. That was a recent conclusion, though. In his deposition with defense attorneys in February of this year, the coroner said the weapon could have been anything from a pocket knife to a kitchen knife. He did say in the deposition that the wounds were not classic serrations, and he was already walking back his serration conclusion from the original autopsy report from back in 2017. So a defense attorney, Bradley Rosey, continued his questioning, asking the coroner if he called the defense with his new conclusions about the weapon being a box cutter, because that's what the police have presented, that it was a box cutter. So Rosey asked if if a new report was made to include this new conclusion. The coroner answered no to both of those questions, but said he told the prosecution about his new conclusion. The coroner said he didn't create a supplemental report because it would have been speculative, not definitive. So Rosey said, either way, it's all speculation. Okay, while the abrasion lines were only on one wound, the coroner said it doesn't necessarily mean more than one instrument was used, like more than one weapon is what he means. The coroner said the marks could have been made in only one place because of the different angles of pressure. However, it also doesn't rule out the possibility of more than one weapon. The coroner also testified that in his deposition he couldn't tell if the suspect was right or left-handed. Okay, now this is after he tells us the cut goes from right to left. But anyway, or left to right. The coroner testified Wednesday that it's difficult to tell how long after they received their wounds that the girls passed away. He estimated between 5 to 10 minutes for Abby and closer to 5 minutes for Libby, based on which veins and arteries were damaged. Rosie pointed out that the girls' airways were not damaged, so they would have had time to react and scream. The coroner told the prosecution he couldn't determine Libby's time of death with precision. The coroner said the biggest challenge we face in forensics is time of death. Prosecuting attorney James Luttrell asked if the girls' bodies were consistent with dying 41 hours earlier, and the coroner said yes. That would be about 3 p.m. on February 13th. Now, I got to say this. This coroner appears to be like the bridge guy witnesses, all these people that keep changing what the person they saw was wearing and what they look like. Like this coroner, he's wishy-washy at best, tailoring his testimony to fit the prosecution at the worst. Like I'm beginning to wonder, is there any honorable, truthful people that live in Delphi? Like seriously, these poor young ladies deserve so much better than what they've received. Honest to goodness, it's sinful what's going on here. Okay, because from the blood evidence found at the crime scene, it would appear that Abby was cut first. Upon seeing that, Libby tried to run, with the killers catching up to her at the tree to the north, where a great amount of blood was found, which is also the direction of the cemetery, which was at the top of the hill north of the crime scene. The amount of blood found on and around this tree would suggest that this is the location that the killer inflicted at least 4 cuts to Libby's neck. Now again, the coroner's not certain if it's 4. It appears from the blood evidence that Libby's flight instincts kicked in. Therefore, when the killer caught her, there must have been a minimum of 2 killers, as it would have been impossible to make precise cuts to both sides of Libby's neck without her struggling. I mean, to make those precise cuts once and then cutting twice in the same place on both sides of Libby's neck? Like, there was blood found on the heel of Libby's right foot, on the back of her right calf, blood streaks down her thigh, indicating she was moving while the blood flowed from the wounds on her neck. Stop and think about that for a minute. A person cuts a deep wound in your neck once, then twice, in almost the exact same spot, then repeats this on the other side of your neck. Would you stand still and allow this to happen? Of course you wouldn't. Someone must have been holding her still while the other one cut both sides of her neck. Like, there's no, you can't get around that. You just can't, because your human instinct kicks in, The physical evidence at crime scene tells you this. The other factor is Abby was slim. Oh, excuse me. At 100 pounds. So, and again, I'm not being disrespectful here. I'm just looking at this in an objective point of view. So, Abby would be much easier to hold on to. She was only 100 pounds. Okay, so she was a slim girl. While Libby was a big girl, like she was 200 pounds. Not easy to hold on to. So it would take 2 people to either lead Libby over to where Abby's body was by pulling her by her hands, because at the time Libby would have been bleeding profusely, most likely losing consciousness. It would be near impossible for one person to drag 200 pounds that distance on their own. And again, I don't mean any disrespect here, okay? It would be nearly impossible for anybody to move something weighing 200 pounds except for a very muscular, fit man. Because you got to look at a crime properly, you must look at the crime scene with an objective eye. Like, think about it. Go to your local gym, ask them to put 200 pounds worth of weights on the bar thingy and try and lift it, and let's see how far you get with it. Like, seriously, like 200 pounds is a lot of weight to lift for one person or to move. Like, you're talking almost 20 feet. So one question I have is, who does the green scarf and the white bandana material cloth belong to? Did either of the girls wear these two items? Is there a clothing tag on either of these items? They were found in the creek along with the clothes. If these two items didn't belong to the girls, then who did they belong to? And as they were of significance to have been thrown in the creek with the girls' clothes, they may have belonged to the killers. Either of those items could have been what left the marks on Abby's face. To recap what information we have learned from the testimony to date, the girls most likely did not walk over the Moon and High Bridge. The girls most likely walked an incline according to the analysis of Libby's phone. The reported last photo of Abby on the Moon and High Bridge was not on Libby's phone, nor was it uploaded to Snapchat from Libby's phone. That's fact. Okay, the bridge guy video was created by the Delphi police and most likely is not authentic, and bridge guy has nothing to do with the crime. Therefore, there goes the prosecution theory out the door. All the witnesses claiming they saw the guy that is featured in the bridge guy video all changed their descriptions of the man they saw, exposing the fact that all these witnesses were being less than truthful. Even Delphi Sheriff Liggett, went on the witness stand and said none of the witness statements descriptions of the man fit Richard Allen, not in 2017 and not today. The type of wounds that both girls suffered and the location of where Libby was most likely was attacked tell us that there was a minimum of 2 killers. The ballistic person attempted to dazzle the jury with their junk forensics in regards to the spent round, but in the end admitted it was all speculation. Okay, so the next episode we'll discuss the DNA expert from the State Forensic Lab. So thank you so much for listening. I look forward to all your feedback. Please leave feedback in the comments section, or you're welcome to email me at your feedback at ybentleydavidson@outlook.com. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. It's free. Until next time, always remember, every day is a gift.